Well, Brandon Aiyuk has finally said, yeah, I'll play for the 49ers. I was just teasing. For 6 months I was teasing. He signed the extension. Finally, we'll tell you all about it. Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Outback QB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Curtis DuBois, and today we are talking a number of things, but first up, we have to talk about Brandon Aiyuk. He's finally signed the extension. Whew, that was a marathon. 4 years, $120 million, 76 of that guaranteed. On total money, as far as wide receivers, he falls just behind Amon-Ra St. Brown. I remember St. Brown, when he signed his, insisted on $120.01 million. I don't know whether he had promised somebody a small financial gift or whether he just wanted to outrank anybody else who happened to sign $120 million on the dot. Well, he's done that because that's what Aiyuk signed for, $120, so he just slots in right behind him. Average annual value, he's equal fifth with Tyreek Hill, who $30 million a year. Would you say Hill is a more productive receiver? You would at the moment, but given Aiyuk's age, probably fair enough. Where does Aiyuk sit on the landscape of wide receivers? Is that money about right? Yeah, probably. He's gotten better every year that he's been in the league. He started with 700 odd yards and has worked his way up every year. Last year was 1,300 plus with 7 TDs, and the year before he exceeded 1,000 as well. So he's a very good wide receiver, and the San Francisco 49ers needed a win. They needed something on offense because it's been a tumultuous preseason for them, really. McCaffrey's calf, Elijah Mitchell was out for the year, the backup running back. Trent Williams still holding out, their star tackle, and finally they get Aiyuk done. So he teased us with, would he go to Pittsburgh? Would he go elsewhere? In the end, no. He didn't. So he's still there. That's finally been done. But what I wanted to talk about very quickly today is how long that took. It started in February. It's now the end of August. So for some context, here's some things that take less time than what Brandon Aiyuk contract negotiation took. Cats, dogs, goats, pigs, rabbits, sheep, leopards, panthers, and wolves, and tigers and lions all conceive and bear their young in a shorter time frame than it took Brandon Aiyuk to get that contract signed. Liz Truss was Prime Minister of the United Kingdom for a far shorter time than that contract took. Sam Allardyce was manager of England for a shorter time than that took. The Chinese built a skyscraper called Mini Sky City in 19 days. It would be another 160 days on top of that before the 49ers and Aiyuk agreed to deals. Tommy DeVito, his run as QB1 was far shorter, and we all remember him. Daniel Jones, his 2023 season was shorter than that contract negotiation took. The marriages of Kim Kardashian and Chris Humphries, Nicolas Cage and Lisa Marie Presley, Pamela Anderson and Kid Rock, and Carmen Electra and Dennis Rodman were all shorter than the Brandon Aiyuk contract period. That's how long that took. 6 months. Now we can stop talking about it because the season's 7 days away for us, and we can finally get on with playing some football. Well, speaking of playing football, the Patriots, they've named their QB1. Now, Jared Mayo tricked us because he teased us yesterday. He said, in 24 hours, we'll let you know who the QB1 is. So which got me thinking, after a whole preseason of me thinking, well, it's got to be Jacoby Brissett. He'll start. He'll be the QB1. He'll be the starter week 1. Then I thought, well, Brissett's had a pretty bad preseason. Drake May's looked better than we thought. And now Jared Mayo, the head coach of the Pats, is teasing the media saying, we'll tell you in 24 hours. I've made a decision and we'll let you know. Well, I thought, well, if he's starting to generate some buzz, does that mean that he's naming Drake May? No, it doesn't. No, he built that up to then tell us that a journeyman backup, Jacoby Brissett, is starting. Now, that's no disrespect to Brissett. He's actually been serviceable as a starter, and he held Cleveland together when he was there and Deshaun Watson was serving his suspension. But it is a bit annoying, isn't it? Why would you build up an announcement and tell us, we'll tell you tomorrow, if it was just going to be what we all thought it was going to be the whole time, Jacoby Brissett? It's not exciting. You tricked us, Jared. You made me look a fool on my Instagram. Anyway. That's Outback QB podcast, by the way, if you look it up on Insta. Oh, okay, so Drake May won't start. I wonder when he will start. Over under week 4. Now, more quarterback news. Tyler Huntley has been cut from Cleveland. You remember Huntley as a very, very good backup for Baltimore when Lamar Jackson has been injured in previous years. But he leaves Cleveland. He'll get snapped up somewhere else. There's no doubt about that. But it leaves the Cleveland quarterback room in an interesting spot. It's Deshaun Watson, number one, still, obviously. They got Jameis Winston, who's, we saw him as one of the most up and down and exciting starters in history at Tampa Bay, because you just never know what was going to happen. 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions in the season's wild. DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, it means that he keeps his spot. He's third on the roster. He makes the cut. So Huntley will go elsewhere. It's Watson, Winston, and DTR in the Cleveland quarterback room. Some bad news for my co-host Chris Hall, because one of his boys, Jaron Hall, and he's his boy only because he shares the same last name. There's not much science to it. But Jaron Hall, after a very promising preseason in year two, played a little bit last year, didn't look that great, but looked pretty good in preseason. He's been cut. He's been cut from Minnesota. So their room is interesting as well, because obviously JJ McCarthy's out for the year, which means Sam Darnold will be the starter. They clearly weren't comfortable having Darnold backed up by Jaron Hall. They've brought in Brett Rippon, another journeyman backup, and he's more of a backup than Jacoby Brissett. He's never really been a strong starter anywhere. So, yeah, they bring in Brett Rippon in Minnesota, and they cut Jaron Hall, so I wonder where he'll end up. And then finally, some cornerback news. Philadelphia have an injury to James Bradbury. He's out for 6 to 8 weeks with a lower leg injury. It doesn't require surgery. But that's interesting because they obviously went hard. They brought in Quinion Mitchell in the first round and Cooper DeJean in the second round to fill their cornerback or hybrid safety spots, secondary spots, certainly for DeJean, and Mitchell was more of a pure corner. But Bradbury and Slay both fell away last year, and we talked about that a lot on the Outback QB main show. It was a real need in the draft, and they did address that in rounds 1 and 2. But with Bradbury out, that's a bit of a safety net gone. So he's gone for almost half the season. I wonder how much of the two rookies we will see from week 1 at Philadelphia. Probably a lot now, given that injury situation. So there we go. Sometimes we overthink these things, don't we? If you had said in April, what would the situation be with Aiyuk when the story had been bubbling along for 2 months? We would have all said, he'll sign. And as soon as Drake Maye was drafted and they had Jacoby Brissett in the room and they're a long rebuild team, we would have said about the Patriots, they'll start Brissett. Maye won't start. And then we go on months of speculation and we get overhyped and excited and we get fooled into thinking certain things because of mind games and media tactics. And really, it's all just ended up the same as it would have been if we were predicting it in April. Aiyuk stays, like Dos, my other co-host, always said he would. And Maye won't start. I reckon he'll be in by week 4. We'll see you tomorrow.